Hey guys, so lately I've been doing a lot of builds with 20 by 20 stacks. I've had pretty good success so far. And lately I've been using the HG-LRC micro stack. I've had great success with the micro stacks, so I'm going to start looking at a few different 20 by 20 stacks. What I have here is the Spedix is100 micro stack. This is just the stack without the VTX because their VTX is 25 milliwatts or 100 milliwatts, and I feel like I need at least 250 milliwatts. So I'm going to be using my own VTX, but first what I'm going to do here is just go over the specs for the Spedix is100. So let me start with the flight controller. What comes with the flight controller, let's open this up. I haven't even looked inside yet. So let's look inside and see what we have. So we've got the Omnibus F4 flight controller. I'm going to have to plug this in and find out exactly what the firmware is because there is not a lot of documentation out there on these stacks, and I keep reading conflicting specs on this. So I'm going to find out for sure exactly what the firmware is on here. I'll put it up on the screen. So we've got a bunch of these little male connectors and standoffs, and on the flight controller here it has all these female ports, and from what I understand you can easily take these female ports off, and underneath are direct solder pads if you don't want to use these connections. It looks like it does come with a manual, and there are a few things that you do need to do in order to get this thing ready for your build. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flash a picture up on the screen. Before you even start anything, there's a bunch of selector pins that you need to solder together or jump together. So the first thing you need to do is select your RX type. You're going to need to select your RX voltage. You can either do 3.3 volts for Spectrum or 5 volts for pretty much any other receiver. You're going to need to select your camera voltage if you're going to power your camera directly from the flight controller. You can either do main battery voltage or 5 volts, and you're going to need to select your VTX voltage, either main battery or 5 volts. So with my build that I'm going to have, I'm going to be using a VTX that powers my camera, so I'm not even going to mess with the camera voltage pads on here. I'm just going to use 5 volts from the VTX voltage. As far as the specs with this little flight controller, obviously it's a 20 by 20 flight controller. It's got an F405 processor. It has the MPU 6000 gyro, and it has a 5 volt or 3.3 volt back. Like I said before, it comes with these little female connector ports for pretty much everything you're going to connect. Over here I believe is the camera, then down here is the buzzer and LED, and over here is your receiver. I guess it makes things kind of simple because you can just solder on your wires onto these little connectors and just plug them in when you need to, and if something goes wrong you can unplug it, change it out. It seems pretty easy. I think it's kind of neat. I might leave them on there with my build, only because it just seems kind of simple. If you need to switch something out, do some work on it. So this stack does have connector pins where everything connects together. It looks like it comes with a little protector on here, and this is the flight controller, and it's just going to squeeze together with the ESCs. So let's take a look at the ESCs. So Spedix does make a couple different kinds of 20 by 20 ESCs. These are the ESCs specifically for the is100 stack because, as you can see, they've got the slot for the connector pins where the flight controller just is going to squeeze right together. You're going to have your little standoffs in between, and it just sits together like that. It's actually pretty low profile. It sits down there pretty tight. So this is just a tiny little stack. So the ESCs, they do come with a manual. It looks like to be the same exact manual that came with the flight controller. There's really not much on here. So for the ESCs, these are 20 amp BL Heli S ESCs. They do have a burst rating of 25 amps for 10 seconds. As you can see, the solder pads are kind of small. What it comes with is this 18 gauge wire and a 25 volt 150 microfarad capacitor. It is pretty small. The wires are kind of small, and as you can see, the battery pads are kind of intended for 18 gauge wire and not anything much bigger. So I am going to be using a larger gauge wire, so it's going to be kind of tough getting onto these pads here. And that's pretty much it. And if you got the version with the VTX, it is a 25 100 milliwatt switchable VTX with 40 channels. It does run on 5 volts, so if you are powering it from the stack, you need to make sure that your VTX power selector is on 5 volts. And that's pretty much all you need to know. It's kind of straightforward. There's not a lot of documentation on there. I'm going to be having a build coming up with this stack. We'll see how it works. We'll see how it performs. So that's pretty much it. I hope this helps, so thanks for watching.